Are the Chicago Bulls planning to trade Josh Giddey? Let's talk about it. Now, if you are new to the channel or just haven't done so in a while here, hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. We are the only channel talking Chicago sports, how Chicago talks, so make sure that you stay in tune with us, man. So the reports, and I would loosely call these reports, there's been talk that the Minnesota Timberwolves could be interested in Josh Giddey, and that the Phoenix Suns have done background work on Josh Giddey. And from this, we have seen the aggregators grab a hold of it and turn it into trade packages available for Giddey, what Josh Giddey could be for a team in the future. We're at that point in the offseason where you got to find content to talk about if your team does not have a great draft pick to go after, where here in Chicago, we don't have to worry about that nearly as much. But the question on the table is Josh Giddey on the trade block, and should Josh Giddey be on the trade block? I think both are very valid questions. Here's where I start with the is Josh Giddey on the trade block. I think when you look at a lot of the reporting, right, especially when you see Evan Sideary talking about the Phoenix Suns portion of it, I believe Mark Stein also talked about the Phoenix Suns' interest in Josh Giddey here. It basically said they're doing background work, which, listen, if you are on an organization that just watched the Chicago Bulls swap out their entire front office, swap out their head coach, come with a completely new philosophy, probably going to be a very different coaching style than what Billy Donovan had, although some of the messaging is the same, and you're not doing background work on any of the talented players that may end up on that team, you're bad at your job. So for everyone who's not a fan of any of the organizations doing background work, and you know that you need a point guard, you should probably be a little bit concerned. But outside of that, background work is what you expect to see from teams looking into this. If the Minnesota Timberwolves are interested, right, you know that they're going to do their due diligence on trying to find out everything that they can about Giddey and seeing how he fits. That doesn't mean that all of a sudden they're going to pick up the phone and say, yo, we got 4 first-round picks for you. Send us Josh Giddey gift wrapped in a basket. Clearly, I'm joking on 4 first-round picks because some people will take that pretty seriously. But here's the reality of it. Is Josh Giddey on the trade block? Possibly, but at least the Bulls are not pushing that messaging. Now, maybe this is something outside where, and we've seen this before, where front offices go out there and they drop little hints here and there to see what ends up getting bites on it. Realistically speaking, if the Bulls were to trade Josh Giddey, would I be surprised? No, because this is a new front office, this is a new regime, and I think that when new regimes come in, there's an expectation that, hey, this is not going to go the way that you planned. Your favorite, as I always said, Chicago Bear, but in this case, Chicago Bull, may not be your favorite Chicago Bull in a couple of years. You know why? Because they got the 4th pick overall and the 15th pick overall, and those two guys are probably going to be somewhat important in the future of what this team is going to do, especially with this first draft for Bryson Graham being the most important one, with what's hoping to be the highest draft capital that the Bulls have in a while here. I think the reality of the situation and what this all leads up to is pre-draft rumors. I think that, would I be shocked if the Bulls made a move? No. But I also think that if you're Thiago Splitter, you probably want to see what your team looks like with a point guard on the floor that can convey the message that you want to send to it. And we've seen Josh Giddey be able to do that ad nauseum. I would expect that you start the season with most of these guys. Does that mean that they're on the team by the trade deadline? I don't know. We'll see how things work out. We'll see how everybody fits together. But I would also think if you're taking a number 4 overall pick, depending on if that's Cam Boozer or if that is Caleb Wilson, because while it feels like it's going to be Caleb Wilson, we did see that the Bulls did a last-minute workout with Cam Boozer. It definitely could be Cam Boozer as we get down to the final hours, depending on who wants Caleb Wilson more. And I think a lot of teams are very intrigued by the possibility of having a guy like Caleb Wilson on their team. I think the Bulls definitely want him in the building, and I believe he's the only one that did. The Bulls are the only one that Caleb Wilson did a workout for, so there's a lot of fans expecting him to be here. But I say all that to say, you want your rookie to work with a guy that's going to make the floor easier for you. So do I think that the Chicago Bulls are going out there and just shopping Josh Giddey to anybody who would listen? No, I don't think that Josh Giddey is on the trade block. But do I think it would be surprising if somebody came to the Bulls and they were like, listen, we know that you're rebuilding. We've got draft compensation that we can send back to you. We've got expiring contracts and you have an ability to take them. We would love to take Josh Giddey and we will give you X, Y, and Z either in tomorrow's draft. If it is going to be something like that, I would like picks from tomorrow's draft, and or possibly moving forward in the future. Extra picks are never going to hurt you, especially in a situation where the Bulls have all their picks. So it gives them potential to move up to try and get into a range to take players that maybe fit the timeline a little bit better, or fit the talent timeline, I guess I would say, a little bit better. But, do I think that right now Josh Giddey is on the trade block? I personally don't. And I think that this is just pre-draft conversation on young, talented pieces. Remember, Josh Giddey is only 23 years old. And so you wouldn't just, on a very cost-controlled contract, you're not just going to get your way with Bryson Graham in this situation. Now, I don't think this is an AK situation where it's like if 4 first-round picks are offered, you can't have him. We have seen that on the flip side, but I do think that there's a real conversation to be had around the expectation being that Josh Giddey is going to be here moving forward. Let me know how you guys feel in the comments below. I'll be down there talking with you guys as well. Do you think that Josh Giddey is on the trade block right now? Now, here's the flip side of this, right? Should Josh Giddey be on the trade block right now? Should the Chicago Bulls be looking to trade Josh Giddey? Because, listen, realistically speaking, we have heard about some potential trades here in the draft where the Bulls could go out there and move up from 15. If you package Giddey in 15, how high could you possibly get? There's a ton of talent in this draft. I mean, of course, you've got your top 4 guys, but I think when you talk about guys like Keaton Wagler, when you're talking about guys, I throw in a Damara in there. I think that there's just a lot of talent at the top of this draft that fits what the Chicago Bulls are looking to do moving forward, but you have to be comfortable in addressing the point guard position in a way. You don't want to get worse by trying to get right. Like, so you have to still be comfortable addressing the on-ball guard position, I should say, in a way. And here's the only world that I'm living in where Josh Giddey should be on the trade block if you're going to go with this. The one pause that I have had to going after Keaton Wagler was I didn't want to go get a guy and turn him into an off-ball guard when I thought that he was much better as an on-ball guard in college. I thought that when you watched him on the floor with the ball in his hands, when he got the opportunity to operate freely, that's when you saw him flourish the most at Illinois. I don't think that the Bulls are moving back into a top 5 to 8 situation here. But if you're telling me that you start to get a little bit later into this board and you see Keaton Wagler on the board still, and you can move on from a really good player in Josh Giddey. This is no disparaging. This is not to disparage Josh Giddey at all, but you can move on from a really good player in Giddey, the 15th overall pick, move up into a situation where maybe you get back into that top 10 and you can come away with Caleb Wilson, Cam Boozer, or Cam Boozer and Keaton Wagler in that draft. I think that's a conversation I'd be willing to have, because now I'm getting Keaton Wagler at his best. He comes in and he's the one handling the ball. You got to learn how to run Tiago Splitter's offense. You're giving yourself a dynamic guard that can get to the rim. You're giving yourself somebody who can create his own shot. Like, I think that it adds a lot of what Giddey, I don't want to say doesn't have, hasn't been allowed to showcase at this point. Now, a lot of people will look at that and say, well, why don't you just select a player at 15 and go out there and showcase Josh Giddey as the player that he's going to be? That could be on the table for the Chicago Bulls as well. Could he grow in Tiago Splitter's offense? But the one thing that I think would make me feel better about it is, that Tiago's not signing off on moving on from Josh Giddey if he doesn't think that Josh Giddey, if he thinks that Josh Giddey is a catalyst piece in his offense, right? If he thinks that Josh Giddey is going to be the next Denny Avdia in this offense, which I think there's a real conversation to be had on that. We've seen Josh Giddey be more of a scorer at the college. I'm sorry, not at the college level, at the international level, right? Where he's played in Australia. We have seen Josh Giddey be more of a scorer last season with the Chicago Bulls, but still, right? It was like the 4th thing that Giddey was asked to do on the list. When you look at all the things Giddey's asked to do, relay the message of the coach, run the offense, so facilitating the ball to everybody else to get them involved, rebound the basketball, and then scoring kind of came up in that sense. I think if you're sitting there in a world, if you're Tiago Splitter and you say, hey, Giddey, do all of those other things, but scoring can come first for you, I think you see a different version of Josh Giddey. But I say all that to say, when I look at what potentially I would put Josh Giddey on a trade block for, if you're telling me that I'm getting Keaton Wagler and he gets to be an on-ball guard, doesn't have to be the number one option, doesn't have to be the face of anything. Like, there's some expectation with Giddey, but let's be real, right? Like, I don't expect Giddey to turn into the the next point guard in the NBA. And so you're making a bet on upside. You better be right, but you're making a bet on upside, and you're putting the ball in Keaton Wagler's hands in a situation where you saw him be the most comfortable in college as far as a player. He facilitated well. He scored the basketball well. He did a lot of really good things on ball. And I would rather see that than see Keaton Wagler off ball, which has kind of been my biggest gripe with him. You know that the talent is there, but off ball, I feel like there are too many times where he gets lost in the sauce. Now, that could be fine if Caleb Wilson is your one and you've got Giddey and you've got Modest, and maybe you end up with Keaton Wagler if he were to fall to you at 15, or if you were to package a couple of picks to go get him. I'd be fine with him coming in as an off-ball guard, but I do still look at that as that's not the best version of the young man that we want to see. I would rather draft a kid and put him in the best position that you saw him in college, which to me was him playing on ball. But hey, let me know how you guys feel down in the comments below. Is that a situation, or is there a situation where you would move on from Josh Giddey? I'll be down there talking with you guys as well. As always, man, it is your boy Pat the Designer. Back at it again. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. See Red Nation. Stand up. Peace.